Hello to all my beautiful listeners, and welcome to I Wrote That, a podcast where we bring authors and industry experts together to talk about all things books. My name is Larissa Sowen. I am your host, book coach, and ghostwriter, and we are here today to talk to Tai Goodwin. She's an award-winning instructional designer, author, speaker, and marketing strategist. So we have good marketing tips coming at you today. She is the CEO of that marketing team. She's a former teacher turned entrepreneur with over 20 years of experience in marketing online. She's also the author of Girlfriend, It's Your Time, and co-author of the Profitable Women's Playbook. Her articles have been featured on the Huffington Post and Forbes.com. She's also been highlighted by Money Magazine, Black Enterprise, and the Boss Network. Wow. We bring on such amazing people, and I love reading people's bios because everybody is so diverse, and yet we're all authors. We're all connected in that beautiful way. So tell us about your book, either one of them, Girlfriend, It's Your Time, or the Profitable Women's Playbook.
Well, I'll start with Girlfriend, It's Your Time. When I first started this entrepreneurial journey, I was doing more coaching. And one of the things I started doing was every Monday, I would do something called a Monday morning pep talk. And that pep talk evolved into the book. At the time, I had a day job. I was like a lot of people are launching while working. And I needed some motivation because I did not want to go to my day job. And so I would write these pep talks to myself, and I started sharing them with my clients, and then people started sharing them. And so I ended up taking those pep talks, and it became the foundation of that book. And the whole concept was about the difference between being bright and brilliant. A lot of us, we're bright, but brilliant. And I'll give you a quick example. Like for a lot of women, we label our situation. Nobody ever helps me. I never get this. That never happens for me. But brilliant women do something different. We ask a different question. We don't label ourselves. We say, how can I get that? Who can help me? Who haven't I talked to? What else can I do? And so that whole book is about the difference between bright living and brilliant living. And it started all because I needed to give myself some pep talks.
That's so wonderful to hear on a couple of different levels. One, that it sounds like it was quite the journey to go on to write your book. It sounds like you did a lot of growth in that time, which is like my favorite reason for writing a book is the journey you go on as an author. And then the second piece is you used what you were already doing to write that book. And, in my coaching containers, I work with coaches who want to write books to boost their business. And so often we start with what they already have. We use their programs, we use their podcasts, we use their blogs, their lives, whatever, we transcribe them and they become your book. So when you started, it sounds like you didn't start out with the idea of like, oh, I'm going to write a book. It just kind of happened that way. Mm-hmm. How was the process for you shifting from writing your daily pep talks to actually turning it into a book?
Oh, it's such a great question. And, truth be told, I've always wanted to write a book. I've been in love with books since I can ever remember. Love books. And I've always wanted to write one. And actually, my very first book was something that I created from kind of the same way. I was coaching other people who wanted to start a business while working. And I created this book about something about like 7 signs it's time for you to leave your day job or something like that. And the reason I did it was because I was telling my clients to publish a book. Oh, it's so easy. Go ahead and do it. I said, well, and I'm a big believer in practicing what you preach. And so I did it. And I literally published it overnight because that's when Amazon, it was really new with Amazon, and you could upload a PDF and publish it. And so it's out there. If you look me up on Amazon, you'll see this little book about your career stuff or whatever. I think it was called 7 Ways to Make Over Your Career or something like that. And that was the very first book. But I will tell you that the difference between the two, one was I was basically just taking some blog posts that I had written and putting it together in a book. And this second one, it was very much a journey. It was very much a labor of love. It was very much, I felt like I was pouring out my soul. Mm-hmm. And so and it's very vulnerable. I don't think people realize that, how when you're writing these kinds of books, because I can't have a conversation with you and explain something that you've got a question about, everything that I write is left up to your interpretation.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a really vulnerable place to be, because I can't come in and defend myself. I can't come in and explain something to you. And so it took me a little bit longer, because I was laboring over, am I saying this right? Do I really need to include that story? I also had to be mindful about talking about my family, because I didn't want, anyone in my family to be, like offended, or if I said something or that I probably shouldn't have said, or they didn't want made known. And then I remember, because I self-published through Thomas Nelson Press.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember them making me change certain things. I had to change a couple of names, because legally, right, we couldn't use real names about certain things. So it was a very interesting journey to write, but I loved every single minute of it.
Books are such funny things. And I think it depends what your intention going into them is. Like you said, with your first book, your 7 Ways to Do Something with Your Career. I can't remember the exact title. The intention is different. It's to put something out into the world, to say you've done it. And that is a great intention. If that's all you want from your book, then go for it. But the second book was a little bit more. It was more of a journey for you to go on. And then, the fact that it turned into a book is, a nice end result, but it was the journey that really got you there. And that's so important when you get into the idea of writing a book, is like, what is your intent for the book and for the journey you're about to go on? I love that.
Yeah.
Totally. So let's talk about marketing. You are a marketing guru. Your whole company is based on marketing. What do you have to say? Let's just throw it all out there. What do you have to say on the topic of marketing for authors?
Oh my gosh, so much. Marketers, just like entrepreneurs, have a huge problem with visibility and volume. I remember reading, and it could have changed by now. Maybe it's gotten worse because the market is so saturated with everyone writing books. And listen, I love that more people are reading and writing. But one of the stats I remember that was coming up was that most authors never sell more than 500 copies of their book. And when I started working with writers, at one point I was doing social media and marketing for a lot of authors. One of the things I realized is that they get so excited about writing a book, they forget that they've got to build an audience. And at the end of the day, if you're just writing your book for your own personal gratification, fantastic. But if you're trying to sell copies of your book, you've got to build an audience of people who are willing and able to buy your book. And so if that's your goal, that means you've got to learn how to market. You've got to learn how to get more visibility for your social media profiles. You've got to be on podcasts. You've got to do the things that are going to allow people to find your amazing book that you poured your blood, sweat, and tears into.
Yes, audience building is so important long before you publish your book. And I know when I published my first book, my sci-fi book, I did not understand that. I was a baby author to the core. I had no idea what I was doing. And I thought, you write it and they will come. I was very sad to find out that was not true. It was a stark reality. But with my second book that I launched in December, I was so much more conscious of the know, like, and trust, the building the audience, the adding value to my audience long before I actually published my book. So I think my marketing plan started 4 weeks before I actually published my book. And I spent 4 weeks on 2 different platforms hitting it hard. Not just, buy my book. That was not at all, because it wasn't even available yet. I couldn't even post a link to buy my book, but it was nurturing. It was creating the audience. It was drumming up interest, all of these things. I'm curious from your perspective, as I'm not a marketing guru. That's just one strategy that I thought, I'm going to try it. What do you think of a strategy like that? How does that resonate with you?
when I would work with authors, I would tell them to build their audience even way before that.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to build your audience, I would say 6 months in advance. And quite honestly, I often recommend that people start building their audience even the minute they decide that they're going to write a book. And here's why. A lot of times I've seen people create books and nobody wants it because you
Mm-hmm.
never talked to the people that you wanted to give it to, or they wrote a book and did not even factor in who their audience was going to be. And, it depends who your audience is depends on what's in your book. Like, so for example, if I'm writing a book about relationships, well, who am I writing it for? Am I writing it for single moms? Am I writing it for men and women who are married? Am I writing it for men? Am I writing it for women? Am I writing it for, somebody who's in a LGBTQ? Or who am I writing this for?
Mm-hmm.
Because that's going to dictate what happens in your book. What chapters are you going to have? What are you going to be talking about? And I've seen people create these books. They say, well, I'm just going to write it for everybody. And then nobody buys it because you had like one page that talked about me.
Mm-hmm.
And that didn't really. But if you know ahead of time, okay, I really want to focus on women who are over 50, who have experienced divorce and who are ready to find love again. And that's my story now, right? Um, Now I'm talking to a direct audience. So I'm going to have chapters in there that talk about, sex over 50, or, like loving your body over, like I'm going to have that content that speaks to that audience. And that's going to make my book much more powerful. And it's going to make it easier to market and sell, because the 25-year-old is not going to, they don't want to hear about that. The 30-year-old, they don't want to hear about that. Somebody who's, married and been married for 50, 30, 40 years, they don't want to hear about finding love after you're divorced and over 50. So it gives me a really great chance to focus on an audience that I can really speak to, market directly to that audience, and get more sales.
Mm-hmm. I think my favorite marketing quote, and I'm going to take credit for it. I don't know if that's true. I don't know if I heard it somewhere, if I'm stealing it, but your book is not for everyone. It is for someone.
Mm-hmm.
There is a specific person that you are writing to. And that's exactly how I started my book, was who am I writing to? And that helps with your entire marketing message, is figure out who you're writing to and then tailor your message to them.
Absolutely.
Totally.
Absolutely. And so many people miss that. And I get it. We're all excited. I'm going to tell my story. And listen, that is a wonderful thing. And you have to make a decision. Are you just writing this because you want the pure pleasure of writing it, or are you looking to monetize this? Or are you looking to leverage your book so that you can get more speaking opportunities? Or are you looking to leverage your book so that you can command a higher fee as a consultant? Like you said in the beginning, understanding the goal and why you're writing and who you're writing to, those two things will set you up for success. But a lot of people just kind of overlook those things.
Mm-hmm. That's so important for nonfiction. What about fiction? Because the intent is different with fiction. You're not looking to teach or motivate. In a lot of cases, you're looking to entertain. And picking out who your ideal audience in that scenario can be a little bit harder. Do you have any advice in that category?
I don't know if it's harder. I actually think it's more fun.
Okay.
Like if I'm a sci-fi writer, like there's specific people that like sci-fi and like the kind of sci-fi that is it like sci-fi that's focused on like computers? Is it sci-fi that's focused on like like aliens coming to take over? Like what like who are those people that read those kinds of stories? If you're a romance novelist, right, and you write stories about people falling in love, there's some stories that people love, that people are falling in love in other countries, or it's a romance that's based in this time period. It's a historical romance. So there's all those nuances of people who like different kinds of stories that you want to focus on. So as a fiction writer, I think you start looking at, okay, which genre and which audience do I want to focus on? And you still want to build your audience, and you do it a little bit differently. You're going to sow the seed by talking about the characters. You're going to talk about the plot. You may even get people involved in, okay, I need a name for this character. You guys build on a name, but you've got to build that audience just as well, or else you can have a great novel. You can have a most fantastic story, but if you don't have an audience of people who even know about it, you'll never sell any copies.
Mm-hmm. And that goes back to the 6 months before you even, yeah. So we talked about figuring out why you're writing. What is the intent behind your writing? We talked about who you're writing to. Let's talk about the how. How do you market your book? So you build this audience. How do you build an audience? How do you get your message out there? How do you pick what you're going to say?
Yeah. Wow. Such great questions. The blueprint for building your audience is the same in my neck of the woods. You've got to get people to trust you enough to give you their contact information. Even if you're building something out on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, whatever platform you're using, the end game should be for you to get their contact information. Facebook could change tomorrow, and then all that audience that you were building and thought you had on Facebook goes away. So you want to make sure you get their contact information. And what I mean by that, it's usually their name and email address. And so you focus on email marketing and staying in touch with those folks, because if you get their email address, you then own that relationship and you're not dependent on Facebook or Instagram. And how do you get their email address? We give them an opt-in offer or a lead magnet or a bribe, and some people call it that. And for fiction authors, I'll start with nonfiction first. For nonfiction authors, you're going to base the lead magnet around a topic that's close to your book. Like we help people build quiz funnels. And so one of the things we give people is 101 quiz ideas for entrepreneurs, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so they just give us their email address and we send them that list of 101 quiz ideas. And so now because we're writing a book on quizzes, like it's called Quiz and Grow Rich. Now we've got thousands of people that have given us their email address. We haven't even written the first chapter of the book yet.
Mm-hmm.
But we have an email list who we can start talking. Hey, we're working on this book. Hey, have you used a quiz in your business? Tell me about it. So we've started building that audience. If you are a fiction author, so here's what I know about a lot of fiction communities. They like to be part of the process, right? So if you say, hey, we're getting ready to write a new novel around cryptocurrency, in the year 2035, right? If you want to be a part of this journey with us, give us your name and email address and we'll keep you updated.
Mm-hmm.
Or you'll get to read the first chapter, right? And then you've got people who have opted in. They've given you their name and email address. So now you can send them the first chapter. You can send them, hey, should this in chapter 4, this is going to happen. Should they go to A or should they go to B? I mean, there's so many different ways for you to create engagement with people. And whether you're a fiction author or a nonfiction author, that engagement is what will help people make a buy decision because they were part of this experience with you along the way.
Oh my gosh. That's so great. That's such great advice. And I know for nonfiction, the funnels, all of that is very, very popular. And I have always struggled with my fiction book on how to grow that audience. As far as like platforms go, do you find there's a difference between nonfiction and fiction of like where our readers are hanging out?
Yeah. And I think it varies. Yeah, it does. For some groups, you're going to find those nonfiction folks out there on Reddit. For others, you're going to find people on Twitter. Well, if they're still hanging out on Twitter these days. So my background is in teaching. And one of the things that we talk about in teaching are the learning styles. And I wrote this article a long time ago about how the different social media platforms actually mimic our learning styles. So people that love audio are going to be more geared towards podcasts. So you could write your book as a podcast, and you could write it, but you could actually read it. And so every week you could have a different chapter and you could make a limited series and get people to subscribe so that they get the next chapter of your book. And then when you've got it all set, have it typed and edited, and now you've got a physical copy of your book, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, if you, and people that love Twitter love words, because it's got the 140 characters. Then
Yeah.
you got sites like Pinterest and Instagram where people who are very visual. I do not like video that much.
Mm-hmm.
But if you love video, then you're going to be on YouTube, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so if you know what your audience likes, like, do they like sound effects? Like, do they like video? Do they like watching? Do they like listening? That's how you get to choose which platform you're going to start connecting to those folks on, because they're already there.
Mm-hmm. I think my big advice to tack on to that is pick like 1 to 2 platforms to focus on. That was like the biggest learning curve for me. I have shiny object syndrome big time. And I tend to think I need to be everywhere at once. And that's not true. To spread my marketing message, I needed to be consistent in one area. I couldn't, just spreading myself too thin. My message got so diluted that I was talking to no one all of a sudden.
Yeah. Well, I think there's a balance to it, with a lot of the tools, like we have a CRM that, does the emails and landing pages. And one of the things that it also does is your social media marketing. And so you can actually repurpose content to 3 or 4 different platforms. Now, you may not be as engaged on all the platforms. Like, for example, we post on Instagram, we post on, Facebook, and we also post on LinkedIn, but we're not on LinkedIn every day.
Mm-hmm.
But we're on Facebook every day, but we have a presence so that if somebody is on LinkedIn, and specifically for folks who, like, if your audience has a day job, they're not going to be, a lot of times their day job isn't going to let them be on Facebook during the day, but they can be on LinkedIn. So, you have to just be mindful of where your audience is. Yes, you do want to choose the ones that you're engaged on, but you want to have a presence on as many spaces as possible, because people will look you up. And if they, let's say during my day job, the only thing I can get on is LinkedIn, and I see nothing on LinkedIn about you. Okay. I'm done.
Yeah.
But if you know what I mean? So you want to have a presence, but you do want to choose the platforms that you engage on more frequently.
Yeah. Great advice. Great advice. Well, that's so awesome. You have your company offers a couple of different challenges and interaction points. Do you want to talk about the one that's coming up next that our audience can engage with you on?
So about every 4 to 6 weeks, we do master classes and challenges. And, we've got one where we teach people how to build their email list. And this would be great for, folks who are listening. You are planning your book, or maybe you've already written your book and you realize you don't have an audience. You want to grow your email list. Again, social media is great. Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, all of them are fantastic. But at the end of the day, email marketing is still the number one way to get sales. You can't control what happens on Facebook and Instagram, but you can have more control over the people on your email list and how you engage with them. So you want to build your list. And so, if you go to our site, you can go to thatmarketingteam.com. You can find out there. You can find us at Tai Goodwin on all the different platforms. And when you go there, just look for the latest link and find out about our next, challenge or event that we've got coming up that's focused on email marketing, so you can grow your list and you can make more sales.
I love that. That's wonderful. Thank you so much. We'll be sure to drop all of the links in the show notes so you can just scroll down and find those. And I want to thank you, Tai, so much for coming on. It's been a pleasure.